It was a quiet winter morning in 2015 when British cartographer John Davies received a peculiar file from a former colleague in Eastern Europe. The email was terse, almost clinical. Attached was a scanned Soviet military map from the Cold War era. Nothing unusual for Davies, he'd seen thousands. But this one had something that didn't make sense. Just northeast of Moscow, where the forests roll out in dense, unbroken emerald, there was a city. A sprawling metropolis. Roads, infrastructure, power grids, even railways connecting it to the main Russian network. It was all there. Except it wasn't. Davies zoomed in, cross-checked with satellite imagery. Google Earth, old CIA, declassified maps, even modern Russian topographical data. Nothing. Not a single building. Not a single footprint. Just trees and silence. The city, according to the Soviets, was massive, comparable in size to Kazan or Nizhny Novgorod. Yet it didn't appear in any census, any historical records, or on any non-Soviet map. It had no name, no population, no past. But the Soviets had drawn it, detailed it, planned it meticulously, and someone, somewhere, wanted the world to believe it was real, to understand why a city would be placed on a map that leads nowhere. You have to go back to 1948. The Soviet Union was cloaked in paranoia. Stalin ruled with icy precision. Every map, every document, every broadcast was subject to the scrutiny of the state. In a nation where knowledge was power and power was paranoia, cartography was not just science. It was strategy. Soviet maps were not made for civilians. The ones seen by the public were sanitized, distorted. Real maps, the military maps, were state secrets, locked away. What the rest of the world didn't know was that the Soviets had a habit of lying on paper. Fake towns, entire regions either erased or invented. They called it maskirovka, a doctrine of deception. Its goal was simple: mislead the enemy at all costs, to understand why a city would be placed on a map that leads nowhere. You have to go back to 1948. The Soviet Union was cloaked in paranoia. Stalin ruled with icy precision. Every map, every document, every broadcast was subject to the scrutiny of the state. In a nation where knowledge was power and power was paranoia, cartography was not just science. It was strategy. Soviet maps were not made for civilians. The ones seen by the public were sanitized, distorted. Real maps, the military maps, were state secrets, locked away. What the rest of the world didn't know was that the Soviets had a habit of lying on paper. Fake towns, phantom roads, entire regions either erased or invented. They called it maskirovka, a doctrine of deception. Its goal was simple: mislead the enemy at all costs. And buried within those lies was this city. It had no official name, but researchers would come to call it K56. That was the label on the grid overlay. K56 was not a single building, it was a detailed urban sprawl. Power substations, administrative zones, industrial belts. There was even a small airfield marked just north of the city center. Everything about K56 suggested planning, intention, and permanence. And yet, it had no roads leading out into the real world. It existed in isolation, like a dream half-remembered, or a memory that was never yours. 3:42 a.m. November 6, 1981. A young U.S. intelligence officer named Marlin Kessler sat alone in a Langley map room, poring over intercepted Soviet recon data. It was standard Cold War fare movements, supply routes, false trails. But when he stumbled upon the K-56 reference, his first instinct was confusion. The CIS maps updated weekly showed no such city. He flagged it, filed a report. It went nowhere. Later, in declassified documents, his scribbled notes would resurface. Why fake a city? What are they hiding under it? That question, what lies beneath, haunted researchers for years. One theory proposed that K-56 was a smokescreen for a top-secret military installation, a weapons depot, perhaps even a nuclear site. The logic was chilling. If NATO ever launched an offensive based on Soviet maps they'd studied or stolen, they'd waste critical resources attacking a city that didn't exist. Meanwhile, real strategic targets would remain untouched, camouflaged under forests, swamps, or perhaps other fake cities. But the more researchers dug, the stranger it became. K-56 wasn't just on one map. It appeared on dozens, across years, across editions, different formats, different cartographers. And every time it evolved, grew, expanded, new districts were added. A residential corridor emerged in the east, a ring road in the west. Some department within the Soviet machinery was actively maintaining the fiction, which raised another question: why maintain a lie this long? And this meticulously, if it served no purpose? In 1991, as the Soviet Union collapsed and archives were looted, stolen, or simply burned, a few surviving mapmakers began to talk. Most were in their 70s by then. One man, Viktor Reshetnikov, a former military cartographer, agreed to an interview in Prague. His hands shook as he lit his cigarette, and when he was asked about K-56, he went silent for 27 seconds, then whispered it was never meant to be found. Reshetnikov claimed that certain cities were invented not just to confuse foreign powers but to hide internal secrets. He spoke of facilities so secret, even high-ranking officials didn't know they existed. Sometimes, he said, the lie is not to mislead the enemy. Sometimes the lie is to keep the truth from your own people. Could K-56 have been one of the notorious closed cities? The USSR had dozens real cities, with populations but erased from maps, sealed off from the world, where scientists, engineers, and prisoners toiled on projects too dangerous to name. But those cities left some trace, a paper trail. Rumors K-56 had none. It was either too secret to survive, or never real to begin with. In 2004, a team of Russian explorers, urban geographers, and thrill-seekers set out to find the site of K-56. They trekked through marshland and frostbitten pine for 4 days. GPS coordinates led them to a wide clearing. No ruins, no debris, just silence and the uncanny sense that they were standing on something missing. One of them claimed their compass stopped working near the center of the clearing. Another said he heard a low humming at night. They never returned. In the end, K56 isn't just about maps. It's about power. The power to create, and more chillingly, the power to delete. To fabricate reality. To draw a line and make the world believe it's a border. To shade in a square and call it home. Is the one that was never there. And in a world ruled by secrets, perhaps the most dangerous place of all.